Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a size-inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marley.
As we explore the complexities of the biking world, help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see. And don't forget that all bodies really means all bodies, not just larger bodies, but bodies of all sizes, ages, races, abilities, genders, sexualities, and beyond.
Come along for the ride. Welcome back to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast. This is Marley Blonsky, all by myself today. Don't worry, I am not hosting the show alone. We really only trust Maggie to do that because we all know Maggie is the funny one of us two, and I am the serious one. Anyway, today I am just here to introduce our next guest and tell you a little bit about the episode. So this week we are hearing from Micah Pulleyn. She is the executive director of Outdoors for All Old Fort, which is basically a big outdoors summit working towards increased representation in the outdoors world in North Carolina. It's a really, really great conversation. I can't wait for y'all to listen. So let me introduce Micah. So Micah Pulleyn, who uses she, her pronouns, resides in Western Carolina, where she grew up and has been an event producer for 12 years. Micah is the director of Outdoors for All, a 4-day summit focusing on increasing diversity and equity in the outdoors, oversees rural economic development and outdoor recreation initiatives, and is the partnership and outreach director for the G5 Trail Collective. Micah loves being in nature with her 14-year-old son, Coletrane, oh, that's a really cool name, and traveling this beautiful world. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with me, Maggie, and Micah Pulleyn talking about Outdoors for All.
Oh, well, hello there, Marley. How's it going today?
Oh, I'm good, Maggie. How are you?
I am rocking a majestic sunburn today.
Oh, no.
So it's good. Like I'm having a good day, but every time I move, I just kind of like whimper.
Yikes.
So, but it's good. You know, I had a great day yesterday, which is why I have the sunburn. So we're just focusing on that.
That's fair. I actually went swimming on my lunch break today.
Perfect.
I say lunch break. I work for myself. I mean, like, I'm just trying to be more regimented.
Okay.
And I realized, like, as I'm doing my laps, like, I don't have sunscreen on. It's like, okay, but I'm going to justify this by saying I need the vitamin D. So I swam for like 10, 15 minutes, and I don't think I got burned. But sun protection is important, kids.
I apparently did not reapply enough yesterday is what we learned. Oh my gosh. But today we're going to learn about something really exciting. We're going to learn about a fantastic human person and a summit that they throw every year that happens actually in Old Fort, North Carolina. That's not far from me. It's called the Outdoors for All Summit. And I'm going to go ahead and interrupt myself right here. Micah, I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name.
It's Pulleyn.
Pulleyn. Okay.
You are not the only one. You're good.
So we are talking to Micah Pulleyn, who is one of the, I'm going to say masterminds behind the Outdoors for All Summit. We're going to find out all about that organization and what it's got going on and what it's about. And Micah, welcome to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast.
It is a joy. Thank you. What an honor. I feel like I won the lottery today.
Oh, fantastic.
I wish we could also
get to sit with you all.
I wish we could give you $1 million too, because that would really feel good.
I'd share it right back.
Oh, you know, I wish we all just had that laying around. So, Micah, let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about you. I'm assuming that you like to do outside things. Tell us some of the outside things you like to do.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm blessed because I live in such a beautiful place where we get to play outside pretty much all 4 seasons, whether it's paddling, climbing, trail running, biking, frolicking in all forms, in waterfalls and all the bits here in Western North Carolina. So I feel really lucky that our beautiful backyard has a lot to provide. Yeah, and I've been kind of in the outdoor scene, working in the outdoor industry for a number of years, and I've specialized in doing events, but really it's about it's what I do. I've been an event producer for about 14 years now, ever since I had my kiddo, and I love creating spaces. I love creating gatherings. I love being a catalyst in our community. I'm definitely a community connector. I know a lot of folks in town. I grew up here in Asheville, and so there have been a lot of different circles I've orbited, and I love bringing people together and just seeing the magic that they create when they're brought together. That brings me a lot of joy. It's funny that it's kind of a hobby just because it sparks life within me, but it's also my job.
Yeah.
So I'm really lucky. And I love to spend time with my kid. He's a 14-year-old, part sassy, part sweet guy, loves to make really good food. So we do a lot of that together. And yeah, I just have a pretty good life. Yeah.
Fantastic. Love it. Well,
Thanks.
again, we're having you on today to talk about the Outdoors for All Summit. So give us a little bit of information and background on this summit.
Yeah, so this summit actually came to me, at least the idea arrived to me via a complete stranger, at least at the time. I got a call in January of 2021 from the executive director of Camp Greer, which is a small summer camp in Old Fort, North Carolina. And he just said, hey, we've got this idea of this gathering. We don't really know what its flesh will look like, but we think the bones need to be about equity in the outdoors. And we want it to be multiple days. We want people to be able to get out and play together. We want them to make memories together, but also to kind of come together and convene and have really important conversations about how we can collectively move that needle of equity and diversity and representation, accessibility in the outdoors. And I lit up and was like, damn straight, this is my joy and my jam. Bring it on. I will, find what needs to be the flesh of this gathering. And so it really was handed to me as a blank canvas, and I just took it and run with it. It has only been happening for 2 years. And so 2021 was our first year, our kickoff year. It was an invite-only event. It was probably about 150 people. We really wanted our local, regional thought leaders and industry partners to come sit at the table or in the circle around the fire. And then we had a number of other guests join. And so I kind of curated that programming with the kind of equal parts play and dive deep. And so we were able to sit in community together and have these really essential conversations through panel discussions or keynote presentations, workshops, that kind of thing, but then also hit the trails together. And so it was really nice to have both and-ness of that. And then we grew it last year. So it grew to about 350 people and opened it up to the public, opened up registration. And we had a really nice showing of folks come in from all around. A lot of the presenters were international, or maybe not international, but definitely national in the first year, and then even more so last year. Yeah. So we kind of turned the volume up a little bit, opened it up after we had that proof of concept year one, and then we just looked around the circle like, I think we've done a pretty good job here. It's a pretty magical. It's still intimate, it's still a small amount of people. It's in a rustic environment. It's a summer camp, a pretty scrappy summer camp. Nothing fancy about Camp Greer,
right?
But it's tucked into the woods. It's up against the Grandfather Ranger District. Its backyard is thousands and tens of thousands of acres of pristine forest. And so a part of this, one of the biggest pieces of this is that Jason, this executive director who called me, has also been an instigator of a whole new trail complex being built in Old Fort. So a partnership with Camp Greer and the U.S. Forest Service called the G5 Trail Collective. During COVID, or even kind of before COVID, really wanted to build out a new trail complex with all the different user groups in mind, and not to have the old way of doing things where the Forest Service presents this idea to the public and feels all proud of themselves. They flipped it and they asked the people what they want in their own backyard.
Yeah.
And they asked, what is it that it's your land, it's public land. How do you want to play? How do you want to explore? What kind of adventures do you want to have? So that's where we got a lot of ideas about building accessible trails for people with disabilities, having access points for people who love to fish, having nature loops for those who just want to get out on their lunch break and get their steps in for the day, or have a picnic with their family. And then we knew the cyclists would come. I mean, they come in hordes. We all know that. But we wanted the equestrian folks to feel at home on their trails. And then people of all abilities to be able to come out and really, really enjoy these trails. And so that it helped inform the nuances that we baked into Outdoors for All.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could clearly talk for a really long time about
No, I love it.
Just give me the like.
No, so much of this conversation is so intersectional. And when you mentioned, the Forest Service went out to the local community and said, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
This question in my head is like, well, that's kind of duh. Why don't we do this all the time? And I mean, I know the answer. There's years of, I don't know, infrastructure, and well, that's the way we've always done things. And but I'm happy to hear that it's changing. And this question is not about Outdoors for All, but has that trail, that system of trails, the G5, has it proven to be popular? Like, are folks using it in the way that they had hoped?
Yes, and even more so. Yeah, it's been really, not just the user groups and the categories that are represented there, but a large part of our Latinx population is finding that they feel that they belong on these trails, which is a pretty rich history in this region, but also the community of color that's very strong in Old Fort, which there's obviously been a lot of division being in the kind of rural Appalachian South, that it has been a place of kind of coming together for the different communities within our region. And so that's been a lovely surprise. I think that the outdoors has a way of doing that. It is like our last common ground in a culture and in an era of harsh division. So we've seen some of that happen. We've heard a lot of reports of parents just being overjoyed that their kids are now really wanting to learn how to ride bikes because the trails are so much fun. Yep. I mean, just hearing people in the woods, if you're standing at the trailhead and just hearing people's like, woohoo and wee out on the trails.
Yes.
That's a measure for me, just, that is. But yeah, they've been very popular. We see a lot of traffic. I don't know the numbers in my head, but it's just, as soon as we open a new trail, people are chomping at the bit to come explore and have fun.
That's so cool. And I feel like a lot of brands and companies and orgs have been really good about kind of taking the shame away. And I hate that there's shame associated with it, but with those kind of micro or the smaller adventures, not everything has to be a 10-day summit hike, backpacking in the wilderness and totally self-supported, blah, 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 blah. I love let's go for a walk. Let's, have a picnic. Just the idea of welcoming spaces outside is so crucial, I think, for all of us to reground to, like you said, our last common denominator and what makes us all human.
Mm-hmm. We've also seen, just as a little side note, really sweet programming happening organically from the community along some of the waterways throughout these trails, where folks are playing in the creeks more. They're turning over rocks and finding the microinvertebrates. They're just flopping into the cold water on a hot day and chilling, and just chatting with. So it's that leisure, like the leisure time that's not full on stoke, which we get plenty of, but just the relaxation and finding peace in the woods together with community. So that, we're creating more space for that as well.
I have a question that it was not on the list. I don't know if we sent you a list of questions or not.
You did.
Okay, perfect. Are there any passes required? Or is it just show up and get on the trail? Because I know that's often, even for me, been a barrier of, well, what agency do I have to go buy a pass from or whatnot?
They're wide open and free. We've built 105 car parking lot and with toilets and just show up and get on it.
That's so cool. So we will definitely have a link to that in the show notes. But let's get back to talking about the summit. Sound good?
Great.
Fantastic.
So I know I had major FOMO when it first came across my feed on Instagram, and I was like, wait, I know all these people. Like they're all hanging out in North Carolina and like absolutely zero shade. I pretty sure I had something else going on that weekend. But I'm curious, what did the weekend look like? Did most folks know each other? Was there an immediate sense of community that was formed? Like, was it summer camp? Was it more of conference style? Just tell us what the weekend kind of felt and looked like.
Well, it feels, at least to use some of the words that we captured through the feedback, it feels to many who are in, I'm behind the curtain. So, and it's really hard for me to step away from that role. And you all probably have that through some of the things, you have your hands on it so much. You're in the kitchen, you don't know what the meal really tastes like. But so, it's highly curated, and that might be where my obsessiveness kind of comes in real handy, is that we start Outdoors for All with a very intentional opening ceremony that welcomes everybody into that space. People take their shoes off. We sit in silence together. We see each other eye to eye and heart to heart. And we marvel at the beauty of the people around the circle. And there's usually a ceremony. And then we kind of just honor where we've been to bring us to this place. And we honor and celebrate all the nuances of being represented in that circle. And then we roll kind of right into choices, right? It is a bit of a summer camp vibe where you can either go down to the lake and do a stand-up paddleboard workshop about, leadership with an amazing stand-up paddleboard and whitewater kayak instructor, or you can go be a part of a roundtable discussion about masculinity. Or you can go on the BIPOC ride or the Pride ride. There are a lot of different options throughout the day, whether you want to be physical or you really want to go deep. And we've invited, so last year we had 65 presenters. So those were folks that we invited into the space to come just shine their light on what they do. And so to answer your question, yes, some people knew each other. Some people have been working in the business for a really long time. One of our first keynote speakers the first year was James Edward Mills. And so, he's been in it for the long game. And he definitely is a known name. But then what I really love to do is pull in the kind of the not your usual suspects. A good example from year one was Rachel Olzer. She had just finished up her doctorate and was kind of eyeing the horizon of what was next. And we invited her in to talk a lot about her journey and her vision for the future. And she blew our minds with her keynote, but then she was also very much involved last year. And obviously she's a great cyclist, so she was leading some advanced rides on the trails. So kind of all facets of the community, some folks who are nonprofit leaders, some folks who are athletes or ambassadors or influencers, some who are educators, professional speakers, and some folks who have never really stepped into that role, which I feel like Outdoors for All provides a really, really warm welcome to folks who are like Alexandra Houchin was very nervous about speaking, but she has a lot to say, right? And she dropped the F-bomb beautifully, as it was meant to be.
She's side note, she's one of my personal cycling heroes, and I would love to have her on this show.
She is, I highly support that. And Eric Cedeno, who had just come off his ride across, from Montana to St. Louis following the Buffalo Soldier route. And so he was fresh off the bike and eager to share. And then Phil Henderson from the Full Circle Summit Everest expedition, and he was eager to share. So a lot of this, I would say Outdoors for All, the general vibe is very human. It's very authentic. There's an authenticity and there's a deep connection that we create. So there is a bit of a summer camp feel where people are hugging and crying at the end of it. I've heard words like, this is our family reunion, or, kind of an annual pilgrimage, or this is the deepest sense of homecoming I have had in a really long time, to be seen, to be supported, to feel safe and vulnerable, raw, messy, real, all of that, but also to be able to take home a lot I think a lot of folks felt that they had something palpable for them to bring home to their organizations or to their communities to implement. So yeah, it was, I mean, there, like the feedback was, I mean, obviously there's always a lot to tweak and make it a better experience. I probably threw out too much programming for people to choose from, and it was just overkill, and people were really frustrated with so many options. And I get that, and I'm sorry. But that intersectionality, I think, is seen and felt within the space that we create. And there are some pieces of programming where very clean and clear boundaries or expectations are communicated upfront.
Can you speak a little more to that?
Like this particular conversation is just for this particular affinity group. Please respect that. Or we usually abide by the rule or the law of 2 feet, which means you can, if something isn't serving you, you're not gaining from it, or you're not contributing to it, feel free to get up and go try something else out. Like go join the other workshop. There were some components of programming where the arc of experience that these folks were providing for the group really needed to have a beginning, a middle, and an end respected. So please show up on time, and please stay for the whole time. Please bring your journal. Please, very, very established things within that people really respected.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I found that, when I've done events and you do set those intentions and those community guidelines at the beginning, it does make it easier to ask people to uphold those boundaries and those kind of lines that you've drawn. Yeah. Can I ask kind of an
somewhere tender? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say, can I ask kind of an awkward question? And this is something that I struggle with often. I'm white. I'm making the assumption that you are white, Maggie as well. And obviously we're talking about intersectionality of, gender, race, all these different identities. How, as a white person, do you do that without centering us? I think we have an amazing ability to center ourselves, but how do you make that happen?
That's a really good question. And I think that is something that I've learned a lot by banging around within it during this process. I don't come from a highly trained background coming into this. I'm an event producer, so I've had to stumble. I've had to make some big mistakes. I've had to get really clean and clear feedback. And it is a constant, I can't even say challenge, because it's more of an invitation than anything, right? It's a self-awareness piece. And I think for me, it's some of the hurdles that I had during the process. I would have these initial conversations with presenters, and they would say, how am I supposed to trust you to invite me into a space that you have claimed to be diverse or whatever? And I completely get that. And I really appreciated those moments, those portals of understanding and compassion. And so I think it is an invitation for me to always be thinking about, how can I bring more representation into the fold? How can I use whether it's influence or privilege or accessibility, to open doors and create spaces that are inclusive, knowing that I am an able-bodied, white, cisgendered woman, right?
Yeah.
And obviously asking for help, identifying ways that I can help teach the people with whom I work to really, really prioritize creating seats at the table, letting other people talk first, hiring certain vendors for my event, using different professional, photographers, videographers, and making each one of those micro moments and those micro decisions mean something, and not do things the way things have been done. Right.
Yeah. I love that. And sorry, Maggie, go ahead.
No, I just said, yeah, but I will. I think that idea that it's all of the little things instead of like one big thing that we can do. Cause I think we get caught up on looking for like the one big way to communicate that I'm like open-minded or safe for somebody to come to. And it is those little things just in every step that you take that is going to make such a more impactful and surprisingly noticeable difference than trying to do one big thing and switch it all at one time. So I applaud you for working on those little things. And I love
Every day.
that you said it's not a challenge. Like when people have come to you, it's not a challenge, it's an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am pretty much constantly horrified of hurting anybody's feelings. And so just reframing that into it's an invitation for somebody. If somebody says, hey, you did this and that was not okay, that's not, you haven't failed. You have taken one step closer to not doing it again. So
It's data for learning.
yeah.
Yeah. And I just love the tangible examples you just gave, because lots of folks listening might be event planners in some way, or, maybe they're getting married. Think about what vendors you're using. Who's your photographer? Can you get a non-white cisgendered person to be that person? And, maybe I'm gonna stop talking, but I think you gave some really good examples there. So thank you for that. And I think things that we can keep in mind at All Bodies on Bikes as well.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that one of the really maybe the big rock I put in the jar when I think of Outdoors for All, the thing that is most important to me from a production standpoint, especially when it comes to the budget, is that I want to make sure that that our honoraria are ample enough, that we make sure that stipends, lodging, food, whatever the honorarium fee is, that we do our very best, knowing that we're a very small nonprofit and it's still an event that's been, a challenge to fund. That is the thing that is like most meaningful. I will nickel and dime my Porta-John guy all day long. But when it comes to asking for somebody to bring their special sauce and their superpowers and their passion and their story and their magic and their humanness into the space, I will stand for that all day long.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think we can do as allies, or to kind of just really like create new ruts in the way of being in these spaces, is not to make things transactional, but definitely to allow for there to be flow of money and support and like air under people's wings and elevating the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, underrepresented.
Oh my goodness gracious. I just want to go to Old Fort now is all that I want to do. So I noticed, because I've been stalking the website for Outdoors for All for probably about a month now. There's a high premium on partnerships. Y'all think a lot of your partnerships and speak very highly and kindly of them. How do you go about getting your partners? Who are some of your partners that are really good at kind of thinking along the same lines as Outdoors for All and making sure everybody's got a equal spot at the table?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Actually, the way you ask that question has a lot of my answer baked in it. So it is mostly about alignment. I don't really reach out to partners if I don't feel like we are aligned in our value system, or if I feel that what they're doing within their brand is really performative and just kind of on that marketing face, that it might ride a trend, it might be cool right now, but are they really doing that capital W work within their company? How are they sourcing their materials? Who are they hiring? Who are their ambassadors? So I look behind the curtain a little bit more and dig a little deeper. And so the discernment is, well, it's a lot of effort, but it's so important. And so when we do make those partnerships, they are ultimately about cultivating a deeper relationship, where it again is not transactional, it's transformative. And I think for me, I look for brands that are authentic, maybe have a great sense of humor, they're not too damn stuffy about themselves.
Yes.
That there's a curiosity. I can give you some examples. One of our local partners is an organization called Find Outdoors, and they do a lot of kind of like the front porch, the front gates of some of our outdoor spaces. And they're not quite the Forest Service or the Park Service, but they do provide a lot of guidance to visitors, maps and local recommendations for hikes. And they have been a partner of ours, and they are really doing the work within their organizations, their communities. Like, how can they message to visitors on how to be kinder and more inclusive to other people on the trails when they meet somebody who doesn't look like them, or maybe has to have help because they're in a wheelchair or whatever, and that Find Outdoors really kind of came to us and said, we're fired up to do more work. But they also came with a great deal of curiosity. They leaned in, they came, and they wanted to really learn from the collective experience at Outdoors for All. Another one actually was really a great one. I'll tell you briefly. It's Cane Creek, and Cane Creek's a great a great company. They do awesome cycling components, but Doreen and Jenna at Cane Creek identified that they at the time did not have a very diverse workforce, and said, but we honestly don't know where to go. We don't know where to look. We don't know how to recruit people of color, or we just feel like we're stuck. And it took a lot of bravery and a lot of courage to even say that and to identify, hey, we know we need to do the work, we just don't know where to start. So it then sparked an idea of, well, heck, let's have a panel discussion. Let's dive into this. Let's bring in some other brands that are doing it well to share what their tricks of the trade are. Yeah. And then let's have a Cane Creek and some other brands that really, really, really want to drive this forward. And it was a really fruitful conversation. And so those partnerships to me it's not that they write a check, we put up a banner, we put their logo on something, we call it a day. It's very much like we are collaborating on programming together. We're collaborating on building a stronger community. And so if they're not willing to show up for that collaboration, I pass on them. No offense. Yeah. And I also like programming. I really like to do some not the usual suspects, so that it's just the same lineup of people and the same lineup of sponsors. I don't want this, I want it to be, I want to shake it up. I want to get a little freaky deaky. And so pulling in some of our local and regional partners, and then some national and international level partners that may not, that may be a surprise. And leaning on them to really help inform and inspire some of the programming. So maybe they do have an ambassador that's just a badass. Like a good example is Industry 9 and Alexandra. We showed her film at our little film festival. So it's that kind of partnership that I get so happy about.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So for people listening who are now obsessed with making it to an Outdoors for All summit, when is the summit usually? Like what time of year?
So it's usually in October, which is one of the most beautiful times of the year to be here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. I will say, we decided to postpone this year's summit to build capacity to really rev it up next year. Yeah. And this is really financial capacity. And so we needed more time. We needed to hone the plan. We needed to really hone how we do this and how we onboard partners in programming, how we really work with the staff. And I will kind of backtrack a little bit in that I was carrying a lot of Outdoors for All like the only one in the control tower, with a team of people who were really we had a great council, but really the hands-on, boots on the ground, chop wood, carry water was me until the event came on. And we had a great group of people, volunteers and staff, who swooped in. I can't be the face of Outdoors for All. I'm not meant to be the face. We already talked about my identity or identities. I am not meant to be the only person in the control tower, in which case I am actually deciding to take a step back and maybe have my hands on one facet of Outdoors for All, but I don't want to choke out what it could be. So it's really important between now and then to build out a team. In order to build out a team that has really, really juicy representation all across the board, we need the money to hire those people. So that's what my focus is. So long-winded answer like I do, but October 2024, kind of a mid-October. And we might even add another day so that we can really kind of create spaciousness in the programming.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that gives all of us like a year to save up money to make it. So that's perfect.
And because you guys are officially a nonprofit, right?
We are.
So I'm assuming you're accepting donations.
Hey.
We are.
But back to what you were just talking about, as far as, not being the only one in the control tower, that's been a huge focus this year for me in All Bodies on Bikes, because, it was never meant to be the Marley and Kaylee show. Kaylee kind of got out a little bit easier because, well, she might not agree, because she was doing her PhD and then, working for the federal government. So often it became, oh, Marley, All Bodies on Bikes. And it's like, no, this is about more than just me. So I empathize with you. And if you ever want to, just talk strategy of how we are pulling out more chairs to the table and bringing in, I love that, the juicy representation that really matters. Because it does take time. It's not always clean. It's not always on a timeline that other people would like. But that's what it takes to get the work done. So I feel you on that.
Yes.
And it's a big step. So congrats on making that happen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And if there's any huge philanthropists out there, there's a lot of orgs out there doing a lot of really, really good work. And Outdoors for All is one of them.
Truly. We have big goals. I never want to dilute what it is. I don't ever want to grow it so big that it loses its soul. I've done that before in events that I've produced. I've gone from a 400 or 500 person event to a 3,000 person event. And I don't want to lose the soul.
Yeah.
And that intimacy. So I think we still want to keep it that homecoming, that family reunion. We just need to finesse some things.
Yeah. And
so
how
thank
you
you
do that.
Yeah.
Of course. Yep. Yeah. Maggie, any more questions about the summit, or should we?
I think I have one more question, because we've talked a lot about biking for obvious reasons. But one of the things that I love from what I've seen is all of the different ways to play outside that y'all cover during the summit. What are all the things that you can do? Do you have a favorite?
Ooh.
Also.
Do I have a favorite? Hugging? I think hugging is my favorite.
I love it. Outdoor hugging.
Does that count?
Yeah, I think so. I'm
Outdoor
on board
hugging.
with it.
I like to hug in the rain.
Yes.
I like to hug.
I'm a big rain. I cry in the rain personally.
Mm-hmm.
Not to interrupt your train of thought, but I love a good hug, like a half-assed side hug. Like,
no,
I hate those. There's no point. Like, don't put your body on mine if it's going to be half-assed. Like,
no.
give me that heart to heart.
Our nervous systems need, yes.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway,
awkwardly long ones. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So gosh, the activities at Outdoors for All are pretty extensive, and we were going to bring in a few more. It has been mountain biking, trail running, fly fishing, paddle boarding, climbing / bouldering, horseback riding, mushroom foraging, or kind of like a mycology adventure, decolonizing birding or bird watching.
Oh, yeah.
Nature walks. We'll be bringing in some more activities for the next generation, and that's one big focus of like, how do we usher in our future leaders in the outdoors? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Bring in probably some whitewater paddling, or big like open water, like big lake paddling. The other more kind of obscure ones is I would really like to incorporate some costumed dodgeball.
Okay.
Just saying. Okay.
I'm on board with it.
Okay. Some tetherball.
Wasn't ready for it, but I'm on board with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have time to practice and get your dodgeball skills honed.
Perfect.
We'll probably do some more gravel, like a bike packing trip. That was something that we shot for last year, and it didn't go through. But some bike packing, little overnight action. And then kind of our workshops, we do some maybe like, bike packing 101. How do you get your bike ready? What kind of gear do you need? Trip planning, that kind of thing. So we'll build in a little bit more of that along with something physical. Yeah, dance party. I will say that Alex Bailey of Black Outside is one damn fine DJ. So
All right. Okay.
file that one away.
All right.
I
Good
love
to
a
know.
good dance party.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I missed probably one or two, but you get the gist.
Yeah. All the
Oh,
things.
epic hammock time.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this about Maggie, but Maggie is like
Oh my God.
royalty of hammocking.
I love my hammock.
Oh.
I want to become like a rest therapist, like
Mhm.
teaching people how to rest outside most specifically. And my hammock would be my primary I was going to say weapon,
Vessel.
and I mean that, but let's go with vessel.
I like this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I am sunburned today because yesterday I spent 7 hours on the lake, alternating between a float that I had my ankle tied to a stick so I didn't float too far away from where I was. And I would go out there for an hour and then be in the hammock reading for an hour and then go back out on the water for an hour. So outdoor resting / epic hammocking is my primary love language.
I like this. There's an art form. There's this. Okay.
Yep.
I haven't learned it. I get very antsy and like I need instruction on how to rest better. So
That's what I'm working on.
yeah. Well, Micah,
And that is,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was gonna say that's part of the work we're doing, right? Is the disrupting.
Yeah. And that the outdoors can just be a site of rest, which I think for a lot of us that are in like the influencer, athlete, content creator space, it's hard to draw that line and say, no, I am just going to lay in a hammock all day today and it's going to be epic. I don't need to put this on Instagram. I don't need to create a reel about it. I'm just going to relax.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Micah, anything else you want to add about either Outdoors for All or the summit before we get into our last two questions that we ask every guest?
I think we're good. I think we've gone to plenty of places together.
Cool. Well, our first one, and you're welcome to modify this because you ride bikes, right? I mean, we hung out at Rome Fest, and okay, so we're just gonna ask it because it is the All Bodies on Bikes podcast. What does your perfect day on a bicycle look like?
Ooh. The way I would answer this today, because it could be different tomorrow, but the way I would answer this today is to try, well, I'm going to remove the try, right? My perfect day on a bike would be to just be putting in long miles with my son. And it doesn't have to be crazy mountainous or hard. It can just be one of those cruisy, like just we're just cruising, or it could have some elevation. I want to be my senses would be alive, smell all the different smells and feel the temperature changes when you dip into the shade and like be able to experience that with him. There's a way that we are when we're on bikes together that the quality conversation is just unbelievable. The depth of connection and the flow of, I mean, there's no shortage of what we can talk about. I have a teenager, so most of the time I get one word answers, but not when we're on a bike.
Oh, I love it.
So that is why it would be a perfect day for me, because it's joy, it's pleasure, it's play, it's connection, it's sunshine, or whatever it is. It's senses just being I don't know, turned up. So that's how I would answer it today.
Love that. And then our second question is, just in your like day-to-day existence, what is something that you wish you got to talk to people more about?
Hmm. Love.
Hmm.
Big love.
Yep.
Just big, delicious, divine love. Just in
Yeah.
all of its forms, right? How it comes into our lives through us, how we transfer it and translate it into the work we do, the capital W work, how we share it, how we increase our capacity to experience it. Just love.
Yeah.
I like to geek out on love.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to do some thinking on that because
Mm-hmm.
I think I tend to have like very unidirectional thinking about what love is. And in my brain, I think that often goes to romantic love, which can be such a source of frustration for me. But there's so
Right?
many other ways to love. You are so correct.
And to
So,
be love and to just celebrate love and all. I mean, the love we have for our own fucking, sorry,
nope, you can curse. It's okay.
You're fine.
our own backyard,
Yeah.
nature, I think to me is one of the biggest catalysts for feeling it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Micah. And if folks want to learn more, where is the best place for them to find information?
Thank you. Yeah, we are outdoorsforoldfort.org and we are outdoorsforall_oldfort, I'm pretty sure, on Instagram. And people can reach out to me directly if they want to. I wear a lot of hats, and so I'm not just Outdoors for All. I have about 5 or 6 other hats I get to wear. So sometimes just coming at me directly is easier.
Awesome. And we will include a link to email Micah in the show notes, as well as links to both Outdoors for All Old Fort's website and Outdoor for All's Instagram. So cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation, Micah.
Thank you both. I really appreciate it. Thanks for creating this space.
This is an All Bodies on Bikes podcast powered by Feisty Media. The show is produced by Maggie and Marley and edited by the team at Feisty Media. Thanks for listening.